Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the chairman of the Birmingham Business Alliance, Dr. Ray Watts.
Well, good afternoon, and thank you for being here. I know you had to suffer through that bad weather and traffic, but we hope this will be an entertaining program for you. And we want to tell you how much we appreciate you, the investors in the BBA, coming out today. And it's been my pleasure to serve you as chair for the last 2 years. I'm pleased to announce that this meeting is now convened. Where's the gavel? Well, part of what makes an event like this work and be successful is the willingness of companies to serve as sponsors. And so thank you to those companies who have stepped forward to support this year's event. We're pleased that Drummond Company is our presenting sponsor for today's event. Other sponsors are the Birmingham Automobile Dealers Association, who is sponsoring the reception, which we'll enjoy right after the meeting. In addition, we want to thank our gold sponsors and our silver sponsors who are in your program and are shown on the screen. These sponsors represent many of our region's top companies, agencies, and institutions. And to each of you, we want you to know how much we appreciate your support and your investment in Birmingham and our region's growth. Please join me in thanking today's sponsors. To begin our program, I'm honored to invite to the podium the Honorable Randall Woodfin, who was sworn in last week as Birmingham's 30th mayor. He will bring greetings on behalf of the city, and welcome, Mayor Woodfin.
Good afternoon, everyone. I simply bring you greetings on behalf of the city of Birmingham. To the Birmingham Business Alliance, Ray Watts and Brian Hilson, thank you for your leadership. And thank you for the existence of your organization and the purpose of your organization driving economic development and growth in our city as well as our region. I will say this to the investors in this room. There's much more work to be done, and I look forward to the continued relationship between the city of Birmingham and BBA as it relates to being intentional about economic growth as well as economic development in our area. Here's what I'm excited about. I remember being in the 6th grade in 1992 when the conversation started around the automotive industry in the state of Alabama. And fast forward to 2017, when we think about where the automotive industry is in the state of Alabama, Birmingham has a role to play in that. And I think Birmingham is in full support of the continued growth of our automotive industry. So as it relates to Camtech, as it relates to Mercedes-Benz, as it relates to Honda, as it relates to Autocar, and any other organization that's in the space of the automotive industry and automotive impact as it relates to an industry in our state, know that the city of Birmingham is committed to making sure that as an industry, you not only have our full support, but we want you to expand your business in the city limits of Birmingham. So with that, I want to bring my remarks to a conclusion, but thank you for what you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Woodford. We look forward to working with you to improve the lives of all of our citizens in Birmingham and our metropolitan region. Next, I'd like to introduce and ask to come to the podium our Jefferson County Commission President, Jimmy Stevens, who will come and bring greetings on behalf of the Commission. Commissioner Stevens.
Mayor Woodford, Chairman Watts, board members, fellow stakeholders, I bring welcome and happy holidays from your Jefferson County Commission. It's truly a new day in Jefferson County. I want to recognize and thank my fellow commissioners for allowing me to take part in this renaissance of our great county. I believe they're here today. Would you please stand, commissioners? Thank you so very much for being here. To our many partners in progress, especially the BBA, thank you for your confidence and your trust to allow us to create an environment conducive to your success. You are a vital and critical partner with our Jefferson County Commission on the economic development in developing sound pro-business public policy, and especially in our workforce training. I want you to remember that government only supplies the tools for you, the stakeholder, to succeed. Ladies and gentlemen, you are the economic engine in the Birmingham metro area. We on the commission hear that engine idling and are anxious to rev it up. We commissioners are grateful for our joint accomplishments, yet excited to see what the future has in store. From our panel here today, we will hear many insights into what the future holds. To that end, we are excited and your commission is all in. God bless each of you as we move forward together. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We certainly value our partnership with the mayor, with the city council, with our Jefferson County Commission and other leaders. We have some other special guests today who represent many of the partnerships that help us enjoy civic, business, and governmental success. I'm pleased that many elected officials are here today, and you saw we have a number of county commissioners. We have mayors and city council members from various municipalities, state representatives, and senators who represent the region as well. If you're an elected official, would you please stand and remain standing so that we can recognize you? Elected officials, go ahead. Thank you. We also count among our partners the economic development professionals and local chambers of commerce who are our allies in bringing growth and economic prosperity to our region. We have a number of our economic development partners with us today. Would the others of you who are involved in economic development and chambers of commerce please stand so we can recognize you? We want to thank our elected leaders and our economic development allies for all of your hard work and partnership throughout the year. I'd like to now invite to the stage Brian Hilson, President and CEO of the Birmingham Business Alliance, who will provide us with a year-end review of 2017's accomplishments. Brian?
Well, thank you, Dr. Watts, and good afternoon, everyone. Those of you who have been attending our BBA annual meetings, annual chairman's meetings for the last several years are more accustomed to a lunch meeting at one of our fine local hotels. And while we enjoy doing that, we've thought for some time that we would do something a little bit different. So being here on campus and in this fabulous UAB Alice Stevens Center is a dream for us. We wanted to do something that was away from the typical luncheon format, and this is the perfect place to do it. But to be honest, it's also a way of saying thank you to Dr. Watts for serving as our chair for the last 2 years, and we'll have an opportunity to say thank you in a more formal way shortly. The most important responsibility for the Birmingham Business Alliance as our 7-county region's lead organization for economic development is very simple. It's to secure jobs, more jobs and better jobs and more investment, resulting in a stronger and more diverse economy, resulting in a better quality of life opportunity for all of our citizens. It's just as simple as that, or as complex as that, however you may want to look at it. Well, so far in 2017, we've seen 2,957 jobs and over $560 million in investment announced by 25 different new and expanding companies within our core business sectors. Automotive companies like the ones participating in today's meeting, Autocar, Honda, Camtech, and Mercedes-Benz, all have had recent growth and all have had direct impacts, very substantial impacts, on our regional economy and beyond. Between 2011 and 2017, we have seen 19,394 jobs and over $3.9 billion in capital investment committed in our 7-county area. At the BBA, we have a goal of 19,000 jobs and $3.5 billion in investment being announced between 2016 and 2020. So we're at the halfway point as we approach the year 2018. And as we continue to execute our 5-year strategic plan, which we call Blueprint 2020. One of our goals in the plan is for those core sector jobs, that is manufacturing, technology, logistics, and large office operations, to drive overall net employment growth by at least 5% during the 5-year period, which would put us at 541,000 employees by the year 2020. What we really want to see, though, is much faster growth than that. And for that to happen, we'll need a higher and better rate of workforce participation, more connectivity between employers and the workforce, as well as educators and trainers. And of course, we'll need to see our community image continue to get better. In other words, we want all the good jobs that we can get, but we also need all the labor force that we can get, and sometimes we need the people first. For each of the past 7 years, the BBA has measured our economic performance using a series of metrics, comparing our results with those of other metropolitan areas, primarily in the Southeast. We will once again build that information into our annual economic growth report, which will be presented at our Growth Summit next spring. In the meantime, the BBA will continue to market our community and to work the key strategies which serve to better prepare the Birmingham region to be more marketable. Those are, in addition to our traditional expansion, retention, and recruitment efforts, innovation and technology, including connecting emerging technology-based companies with sources of investment capital. That's a type of economic development that has not been attempted widely by organizations like ours throughout the country, but we've got every reason to do that and to do it in an aggressive manner. Another is public policy initiatives, such as the restoration of tax credits for historic facilities or funding for UAB, the lead generator of economic activity in the Birmingham region. Another is workforce development, including talent retention and recruitment and connecting students with prospective employers. Another is support of our small and minority-owned businesses, which the BBA does company by company, person by person, and also through our Birmingham Regional Enterprise Council. Another is our frequent hosting of international diplomats. You'll see a slide in a moment that depicts some of that activity. Another is support of smart infrastructure investments. And finally, image enhancement, a positive image of Birmingham, both internal and external, how others see us and how we see ourselves as a great place to work, to live, to learn, and to do business is extremely important to everything that we do. Here's a short video which shows some of the companies, the places, the people, and the recognitions which have helped make 2017 another year of progress for Birmingham. Video, please. Well, on behalf of our staff, I'd like to thank Dr. Watts for his leadership as our BBA chair over the past 2 years, and to welcome Lee Smith as our 2018 chair. Also, thank you to all of our BBA officers, executive committee members, and board of directors members, as well as our outstanding BBA staff. Thank you. I think we may still have some people arriving in the back, and as I said earlier, this is a great venue for us to do this. Everything is perfect. We just didn't count on the weather today, but thank you so much for being here. Well, it's my privilege now to introduce and welcome to the stage Mr. John Hudson, who will serve as our moderator for today's automotive industry discussion. I'm sure virtually everyone here knows or knows of John and the great work he does at Alabama Power Company as its Senior Vice President for Marketing and Business Development. John is an attorney and holds degrees from Alabama A&M University and Miles College School of Law. He gives tirelessly to our community through his leadership with numerous business, education, civic, and charitable organizations. Please welcome today's moderator, John Hudson.
Thank you, Brian. Good evening. Glad to see you all this evening. It's my pleasure to introduce our panel today. Individually and collectively, these panelists represent the height of expertise in the automotive industry. As Brian reminded me, they also represent jobs. In fact, 57,000 jobs these guys are responsible for in the state of Alabama. So let's get into our discussion. I'll introduce them going alphabetically and from left to right. Mr. John Hackett, General Manager of Camtech, a Tier 1 automotive supplier that employs more than 900 people at its facilities in Birmingham's Valley East Industrial Park. In a career of more than 35 years with Camtech's parent company, Magna International, John has filled a variety of production and management roles. Here in Birmingham, he has overseen the growth of Camtech since 2008, including several major expansions. All told, Camtech has invested nearly $1 billion in Birmingham to date. Mr. John Hackett.
Thank you.
Jason Hoff has been president and CEO of Mercedes-Benz U.S. International since 2013, but his involvement with the company's Alabama operations dates to 1993, when one of his first assignments with Daimler AG was as controller for Mercedes' initial $350 million investment at its new production facility in Vance. Today, Jason leads an operation that employs 3,700 Alabamians in manufacturing vehicles that are sold in nearly 140 countries. Currently, MBUSI is in the midst of a $1.3 billion expansion. Mr. Jason Hall. Mike Oatrich is Vice President of Manufacturing for Honda Manufacturing of Alabama in Lincoln. Mike has been with Honda since 1989. He began working on the team that developed the company's facility in Lincoln in 2000 and has been a resident of Alabama since 2001, when he moved here to help support the startup of the new facility. Honda now employs more than 4,500 Alabamians and to date has invested more than $2.2 billion in our state. Mr. Mike Oatrich. Andrew Tate is the founder, chairman, and CEO of GVW Group, an international industrial holding company based in Highland Park, Illinois, for right now. Right? The company was founded in 1993, and since 2001, its holdings have included Autocar, the oldest motor vehicle brand in the United States. Under Andrew's leadership, Autocar has become the leading American manufacturer of severe-duty vocational trucks. He is with us because Autocar announced in September its choice of Birmingham as the site of a manufacturing facility that represents a $120 million investment and will create 746 jobs. Mr. Andrew Tate. Thank you all for being here. Let me close these introductions just by mentioning that in 2017 alone, the four companies represented here on stage announced a total combined investment of $1.2 billion in Alabama, Just during the current decade, their collective investment in the state exceeds $4.2 billion. In other words, the importance and ongoing impact of the automotive industry in Alabama and on the lives of our citizens, especially those here in Birmingham and in the Birmingham region, will be difficult to overstate. So we owe you another round of applause just for what you're doing for our economy. So now let's go back in time a little bit. It was 1993 when Mercedes-Benz announced its selection of Alabama as the site of its first facility outside of Germany. Mercedes began production in Vance 4 years later, followed by Honda in 2001, and by Hyundai's production facility in Montgomery in 2005. Together, these three companies have built about 9 million vehicles in Alabama, ranking us 5th among all states in the production of cars and light trucks. Alabama's automakers have also been a magnet for auto suppliers like Camtech, which account for more than 160 facilities located throughout the state, including Toyota's engine plant in Huntsville. Again, all told, 57,000 jobs created by these guys. So with that in mind, my first question to the gentleman is what makes Birmingham, what makes Alabama attractive to automakers and suppliers? And what have been the key factors in the growth of the automotive sector from your perspective? So since we started this off talking about Mercedes, Jason, let's start with you.
Well, as you mentioned, we celebrated 20 years of production this year. A big milestone not only for Mercedes-Benz, being that Alabama was our first full-scale automotive plant outside of Germany, but also, as you mentioned, a huge milestone for the state of Alabama. The state in the last 20 years has not only added those three companies that you mentioned, Mercedes, Honda, and Hyundai, but also Toyota is one of the largest engine plants that they have is in the northern Alabama area. You know, it's really been a transformation of the state with the automotive industry. The initial decision-making process that went into Mercedes selecting this really centered on a few key things. And you mentioned the most important piece of it, and that was workforce. When we were going through our site selection process, we believed and felt that we had found an area that had an untapped workforce that was not only ready to take on the task of building cars, but also was willing to learn, was available, and was really motivated to become what has now become a very large sector of the business for the state, and that's the job of building cars. And that workforce, I think, has continued to be the driving force behind the other companies coming here too. Also, infrastructure played a huge part. The fact that the Southeast was already growing in the automotive sector. At that point, Nissan was already in Nashville. You had companies in the South Carolina area, and the entire automotive business was continuing to migrate farther south. We may have been the first to come to Alabama, but you know, there were plenty of other companies, I think, that saw it also as a great place to start an operation.
Well, Mike, Jason talked about workforce and infrastructure. From your perspective, what brought Honda here?
Very similar. I think this is a great place to run a company for several different reasons, but really to run a manufacturing facility, I always say it's not that hard. It takes people using tools to change materials into a product. That's really all manufacturing is. And if you think about the complexity of building a vehicle, each one of our vehicles is maybe 3,000 to 4,000 parts, and we build 1,500 of them a day. So all of a sudden you do that math and you have millions of parts coming to one facility every week. So the infrastructure as far as transportation and getting those parts are very, very important. But as Jason said, once those parts are there, if we do not have people that have the skill and more importantly, the passion to want to do a really good job and make a really good product, then we're gonna fail. So probably the primary driving factor of selection of this area was workforce, and also the partnership with AIDT, Department of Commerce, that allowed us to train that workforce, find that workforce, and start off in a very productive way from day one. And that's probably the number one reason.
Andrew, you're the new kid on the block today.
So we've had the opportunity of capitalizing on all the good work that you gentlemen have done here. For us, a huge factor has been the BBA, who was able to pull all this together into a package and kind of be a very effective interface for us in introducing us to Alabama and the opportunities here. Of course, AIDT, being a small company coming into a new state, having that kind of infrastructure and the ability to deal with the cohesive front was very helpful. Workforce is a huge factor. I think Birmingham for us too, our current plant is in a small town in Indiana, much more challenging to attract management to come live there, much more challenging to get people to move there. Birmingham, we feel, is a very attractive place to attract talent to move to. So in addition to the great people that are here, being able to attract people to move here has been very important. And you know, we walked into our plant June 15th. Our first product moved off the line September 15th. So we were only able to pull together, you know, getting into production in 90 days because of the infrastructure and the support of the resources nearby. So contractors, suppliers, and those kind of resources. So it's a very business-friendly environment, and our experience so far has been amazing.
Fantastic. John, what's the supplier perspective?
I thought, you know, as the only supplier on the panel, it's, you know, for me, the answer is easy. We're here because of them. Yeah. And it's, you know, it's not the only reason, but it is the main reason, right? And it's why most suppliers come to localize. Logistics is a huge cost to the OEMs, but the choice to move here to support Mercedes was not a very difficult choice. The labor force, the support of the county, the state, the city, the economic development partnerships, AIDT, all the right things were already in place to help us make that move. And we're coming up now on a 10-year anniversary in next June. So time flies when you think about it, that we came here in 2008. So for us, it was, you know, we came to Birmingham to support Mercedes in the initial move.
Yeah. So each of you talked about workforce, and obviously that was a reason that attracted you here. Talk about the evolution in workforce now and what's happening and how you see workforce these days and whether it's a challenge or not for your industry.
Workforce was one of the drivers that brought us here. And if you look at it now, it's, I don't want to say it in a negative sense, but it has become one of the biggest challenges we also have at the same time. Alabama is in a great position. If you go look at the latest unemployment map of the state of Alabama, you're not going to find really very many counties that are reporting an unemployment much north of 4.5%. You know, I'm not a history buff when it comes to unemployment rates, but I would say Alabama's at one of the lowest points of unemployment probably in recent memory. That's great. That's, you know, great for the cities and the counties and all the other areas that are supporting that. It does present a challenge for businesses, and it definitely presents a challenge for businesses that are growing. And the automotive industry is growing in this area. We're in a growth period that's going on 7+ years, which is also not normal for the automotive industry to be going through that much of a growth period. But we are where we are, and the fact of the matter is Mercedes is getting ready to go through another growth period over the next couple of years. So finding the right people, finding people that are interested in the manufacturing sector is actually one of the bigger challenges that we see. I think too many people still think of the manufacturing sector, and we kind of joke in our plant as the dirty, smelly plants that, you know, you don't want to work in. I don't know if how many of you stepped in any one of our operations, and the only one I haven't been in is Andrew's, and I haven't been in Mike's, but I know what their operation looks like. It's not a dirty, smelly plant. It's actually a pretty darn good place to work. And the benefits and pay is competitive with many other occupations and careers out there. And they're very safe places. We're pretty confident that Mercedes is going to celebrate being the safest automotive plant in the United States this year. And that's something we're very proud of, and it's also something that we say is a reason why it's a great place to work. But with that 4.5% unemployment comes a big competition for the best workers.
Mike?
Yeah, I mean, it's always a challenge to find really highly skilled people to fill positions that we have. And it's partly because of the change of the industry. So just as a simple example, when we installed our first stamping presses into our line, they were very large hydraulic presses, and we hired some of the best people we could find with manufacturing experience. And then technology changed, and all the hydraulics went out of the press, and now it's completely electric. So we hired all these people, and then the skill set required to run that piece of equipment completely changed. That very simple example I can use in a car. The cars that we built when we first started producing cars here in Alabama a little over 15 years ago, they didn't have radar systems. They didn't have lane keep assist that kept the car on the road by itself. They didn't have active cruise control. They didn't have cabin watch and all the things and features and functions that our customers want that have made the car much, much, much more complicated, not only to design, but to build. So it's a challenge not just recruiting people, but now it's a challenge to find the skills that are required with an ever-changing product, especially in the automotive industry as quickly as it's changing today. And I think that challenge will continue because the speed of innovation within the automotive industry right now is so fast that education can't keep up with it. So we're going to continually challenge, and I think the only way to overcome this is to have really tight partnerships between private and public partnerships, understanding what our 2-year colleges or what our 4-year colleges can provide and what we need. And if we do that well, then I think we have the opportunity to be at the forefront of workforce development rather than standing up here saying, I wish I could get more. So I think it's an opportunity that we have a really great opportunity to, exceed at as a state. So I'm excited about it, but at the same time, it's a challenge.
Yeah. Well, Andrew, these guys are talking about the challenge. You have basically a startup in our community. What have you faced from a workforce standpoint?
So we've had a great experience. We've been able, with the help of AIDT, who has been a great resource in helping us recruit. I think our first round was 100 people. I think we interviewed 2,000 people to hire the first 100. A lot of applications, a lot of interest. In the initial stages, they didn't even know which company they were applying to work for. So far, our experience has been really good. We're a small company, so the breadth of skills that we require from a workforce is very broad. They need to do a lot of different things. So I think maintaining the interest for them and cross-training them and helping develop them is really important. But I agree with what you guys say. Having that talent pool and technical development as part of the education is really important.
John?
Yeah, it's the technology, even in the last few years, that's changed, as Mike talked about, moving from standard mechanical and hydraulic presses into electric servos, robots that seem to change as often as phones do nowadays with the technology of safeties and programming. We all have, to Jason's point, 700,000 or more robots in a facility. It's not the conventional dirty factory that everybody thinks it used to be. And we see that in the coming years, the technology of vehicles coming along with, as we talk about potential autonomous electric cars, the technology is going to change even more. And I think, Mike, you and I have talked on other occasions that we see probably 60% of the jobs coming in the future are going to require some form of certificate or training beyond a high school diploma. So that's what we need to get ready for. Is it a welding certificate? Is it a trade? Is it a 2-year degree or a 4-year degree? 60% of the jobs are going to require that level of education in the very near future.
Now, a lot of these changes in the industry has resulted in you guys using more electricity. It's not that bad, is it? But let's talk a little bit about the changes in the industry and innovations that you're seeing. You talked a lot about that, Mike. Thinking about that, what does the future look like for automakers? I mean, what should we expect?
That's a great question. I wish I had a silver or crystal ball. I think it's a really interesting time within the auto industry for lots of different reasons. So automakers have been mandated because of CAFE regulations to produce cars that get more than 50 miles per gallon been about 5 or 10 years. And everybody in this room can go fill up their huge SUV for $2 and something a gallon. So these two things don't go together, right? So the government's basically saying, hey, you have to buy a car that gets 50 miles per gallon, and the consumer is saying, I want a vehicle big enough to put everything I own in the back of and drive to the beach. They don't fit together. So how do we change that? So as automotive manufacturers, our challenge now is to produce vehicles that are very lightweight and have alternative power sources that will allow us to meet that CAFE regulation. Well, to do that, that means we're going to have to change from using steel to aluminum or carbon fiber or resin or many other different materials we've never used before. That means we can't weld it, which means we have to, I joke at work, I say we're going to call it the bonding department, and it sounds like a dating service. But it's going to change everything within the auto industry because the traditional way that we have built cars since Henry Ford built that very first line can't exist and us build cars that get 50 miles per gallon. So the biggest challenge really is where do we go? Because once you put your eggs in that basket, there's no turning back. And for you hope it's electrification of vehicles. It could be fuel cells. It could be many other things.
Yep.
And at this point, it really depends on an infrastructure that doesn't exist. So I can't tell you where the auto industry is going right now, but I can tell you that the way we build a car and the way that we power that car is going to be completely different 10 years from now than it is today.
Well, Jason, we know a little bit about where you guys are going in the future. Your announcement that you'll be producing electric vehicles in Alabama. We just heard that in a global logistics center in Bibb County. So we know a little bit about what you're thinking. Could you expand on that just a little bit?
Yeah, the future from Mercedes-Benz perspective centers on 4 letters, and we use the term CASE to describe it. And one is, the C is for connectivity. Vehicles, even now, are more connected than they ever were before. And if you think they're connected now, wait till you see what happens in the next 3 to 4 years. The second one is autonomous. We've touched on that. There's pretty much every car maker has some form of autonomous driving offered in one of their cars. You can drive a Mercedes-Benz now and down the freeway, and the newer E-Class, S-Class, or our next generation of SUVs that'll come out, and basically for up to 20, 30, 40 seconds, depending on conditions, et cetera, your hands are not on the steering wheel. And that's only going to expand more and more every day, and people know, for example, what Tesla's doing with that. The S stands for shared. That's probably the field that, especially in Alabama, but even in the United States, that is maybe not as advanced in other parts of the world. Shared is the car sharing, Car2Go, other things that we have been sponsoring in other areas that especially big in urban areas. I think you'll see it in Birmingham before you would see it anywhere else in Alabama. And of course, the last piece is the E, and that is the electrical piece of the business. Mercedes-Benz will offer 10 full electric vehicles by the beginning of the next decade, and over 50 models will have some form of electrification in them over the next coming years, whether that be hybridization or whatever. So with that, the auto industry is going through a tremendous transformation. And Mike said it right, nobody has the crystal ball. I don't know if it's going to be 15% electric vehicles in the future or 85% electric vehicles. I think most automakers are realizing that flexibility is going to be the key. How do you integrate an electric vehicle into their existing traditional combustion engine business? And that's clearly at the heart of our strategy at MBUSI in Vance is to make sure that our electric vehicles are built right alongside our gas vehicles. That way, if it does become 50-50, we're ready, or if it becomes 15-85, we're ready for that also.
Fantastic. Andrew, technology in your business?
So technology is a big deal in our business. We build tools, custom engineered tools for our customers. We deal directly with the end users. So our go-to-market strategy is different. So we continually interfacing with the customers and their issues and trying to resolve them with them, which is a big advantage for us. We don't develop technology, but we integrate technology with partners into a final solution for the customers. So as an example, we introduced natural gas vehicles really early on, probably 3 years ahead of anybody else in the commercial vehicle space. And we worked really closely to get that applied effectively in the markets that we applied it in the refuse industry initially. So we've had experience in introducing these new technologies and having to build out the infrastructure. Speaking about connectivity, one looks at a garbage truck today, there's probably 4 devices that are transmitting live data with cameras and sensors all over the vehicle, in addition to all the feedback from the engine and powertrain. So there's a lot of technology going on in innovation that's changing all the time and trying to address the customer's needs. So our objective is supporting their needs by providing a very reliable tool for them to do their job more cost effectively.
Well, you guys are not only leaders in your industry and business people, you also are Alabamians, residents of Birmingham and the Birmingham region. Everyone except for you, Andrew, but we're going to work on that, all right? But those of you who are, let's talk a little bit about our region and some of the key issues and challenges we face outside of your work in your industry. Talk a little bit about what you see as some issues that we need to address. We'll start with you, John.
I think education is number one for us, right? So I think we've spent a lot of time kind of going back into the high schools and started getting now into middle schools to try and get an awareness that there are other opportunities out there. I think our hardest achievement has been convincing parents that there are other options for their kids besides going to the University of Alabama or Auburn, which is nothing wrong with that. But there are other options, in making them aware in that instance, and going back to the point of the needs coming up in the future, and bringing the kids in and showing them, what's there for robots, and getting the faculties. We've had the engineering faculty of UAB come into the facility, and they were amazed at what they had within a few miles of the university. So for us, I think the biggest thing I see there from preparation and getting ready is working with education.
Jason?
It's funny because the 2 topics that I mentioned that brought Mercedes, along with obviously a great partnership with the cities and state back in 1993, are quite frankly 2 of the areas that are the biggest challenges going forward, and that is workforce and infrastructure. If you look at our infrastructure in and around Birmingham and let's say the areas that we're involved in, there is need for change. And it's pretty big change too. Roads need work, bridges need work. I'm glad to see some of the things going on. If you take downtown Birmingham and the changes that are happening with Malfunction Junction stuff, I think that's going to be a great enhancement to the city going forward. But you get out in the other areas, there's an area for us, we just announced Bibb County. That site for Bibb County is 7 miles away from the plant. Unfortunately, the 7 miles that it takes to get there, you drive on a very old 2-lane highway. that is in no condition to support the truck traffic and other things that are going to be needed for the transportation between our plant and that site. And those are the kind of things that we're going to address and are continuing to address. On the workforce side, I can only echo what John says. I think getting into the schools, getting schools to make the changes in the curriculum that are needed for the changing landscape of the automotive industry. It's not just go to work and work on the line for 40 hours a week. The industry is changing. The demands of the people that are needed in our operation are changing. That's why we have the programs like our apprentice programs and other things. But they don't all need a 4-year degree. There are other ways to get the training and get people into the workplace without going and doing that 4-year degree. And I think all of us are very active on that front because we see great opportunities there.
Mike?
I think Alabama's a great place to live. I really do. I've lived here for 17 years almost, and I think it's fantastic. But when we hire people from out of state, our attrition rate is much higher than it is if we hire from people in state. So I think there's two problems. We need to fix the education, but we have to fix the population growth problem too. So we have to make Alabama and Birmingham area a very attractive place where people want to come and live, and then there's lots of jobs available. We've already got the lots of jobs available part covered. But trying to recruit people to move into the state and then stay in the state is a challenge. And I agree 100% with what Jason said. I think changing the mindset of mostly parents is another big challenge, where people have this image of a manufacturing facility either old and dirty or Lucille Ball with the cupcakes, one of the two. And it's neither. It is a highly technical, very clean, very safe, very challenging career that people can have without getting a 4-year degree. So you can come and make what you'd make coming out of a 4-year degree, but without the debt. So it's very interesting when we have career coaches and other people who aren't familiar with manufacturing come through the plant. The number one question the career coaches ask me is, how do I get my son or daughter a job here? So we got to educate that these are good jobs. They're safe jobs and they're great careers. I think that's probably one of the big challenges.
Now, Jason, there's an apprenticeship program that Mercedes sponsors. Talk a little bit about that and the success that you've had with that program.
About a little over 5 years ago, we recognized the need for highly skilled people, especially in the trades industry. And trades for us is primarily maintenance. We saw that we, had a population or a workforce that was, I don't like to use the word aging, but maturing into a point where we were going to see retirements. People getting to a point where they're going to, want to take on that next phase of life. And the fact that we didn't see enough of those skilled people to be able to come in and replace that. So we started an apprentice program. We modeled it after the traditional German apprentice program that's used in our operations in Germany. It's actually accredited now by the German-American Chamber of Commerce. And with that, the student comes in. Most of them are high school graduates. They start after they graduate in the spring. They'll start in August, roughly August time frame. 2-year program. They go to school at Chilton State. At the end of those 2 years, they'll come out with a 2-year technical degree. If they get good grades, we will pay for the tuition, so it doesn't cost them anything. During that time, they will also work in the plant, usually on, say, a Thursday, Friday, Saturday type time frame. In certain parts of the year, for example, the summer, they'll work full-time, so they'll have full-time experience. And at the end of that 2 years, they become a full-time Mercedes-Benz team member. And we believe that this is a model that is going to serve not only us very well, but other businesses We've offered other businesses to copy and paste. There's no trademark or copyright on the program. But it is a long-term investment, and that's probably the biggest challenge that we've had in convincing other businesses, industries, is you're not going to see the benefit in the next year or two. You're going to see the benefit once you've filled up that pipeline. And then we have that pipeline filled, and right now it basically takes care of our natural attrition that we have every year in our operation. The funny thing is we are the ones out, and I say we, Mercedes-Benz is the one out in the communities trying to promote the program. And one of the things that baffles me a little bit is why it takes us to go out there and promote what is a program that you're 18, 19 years old, you go in, you get a 2-year degree, you go at the MBUSI, we have a 5-year growing. At 25, 26 years old, you're either in the production making $60,000+ a year, plus overtime on top of that. If you go into our maintenance program, that's another 1.5 years on top of that. So maybe you're 26, 27 years old. You're making $33 an hour in your mid to late 20s. You're making over $100,000 a year with the overtime that we have. I don't know how many college educations, 4-year college educations, that by your late 20s, let's say 30 years old, you have the opportunity to make $100,000 a year. And by the way, you're working for Mercedes-Benz. You have a benefit package that we believe rivals just about anybody. I joke with Dr. Watts, except for maybe the school systems. And with that, a career that's in front of you that has all kinds of opportunities. We have 150 team members right now, this week, in Germany, working on our next generation of cars. 150 Alabamians, the vast majority of them, by the way, they'd never even been out of the state when they got in an airplane and they went to Germany. I'm in Germany about every 3 or 4 weeks at the moment, and at the hotel where we all stay. I'll be in the evening down at the bar having a beer. It's almost always, talking to one of our team members, and they're grinning ear to ear because they're like, I can't even believe I'm here. I've never been on an airplane before, and now I'm in Germany. And, those are the type of opportunities that we believe we're offering to team members. To the points of my colleagues, it's not just a dirty, smelly plant. It's, things that I think most people had never dreamed would be available to them. And it's more than just, like I said, being on the line and doing the same thing every time, or 40 times an hour. It's much more than that.
Wow. We need to help him get the word out, don't we? That's a great program. Well, we could talk. I could ask you guys a lot of questions, but I think it's time to head to the reception, I think. Brian, thank you for allowing us to be here, and I want to thank the audience for taking your time out this evening to listen to our conversation. Birmingham Business Alliance, thank you for all the leadership you're bringing in terms of economic development. And last of all, I'd like to thank the panelists. You guys have done an enormous service for our region by providing jobs and all that you do. It's clear to me, and it should be to the rest of us, that you bring a lot to the table for our region. So thank you. Let's give them a round of applause. All right, let's go. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mike. Thank you, John. Great job. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Jason. Well, thank you all for really a great discussion and a much deeper look into the automotive industry. I have visited Camtech, and I saw those 800 robots, and they were impressive. And I saw a lot of UAB engineering graduates out there working too, which made us happy. Well, this has been an exciting year. It's a time of transition right now. It's been an honor for me to serve as chair and work alongside our other leaders, you. And it's been a lot of fun, a lot of work, but it's been interesting and stimulating. Our Urban Innovation District Initiative, which we've called Innovate Birmingham, is going extremely well, and it has the opportunity to help transform the future economy of Birmingham into a knowledge-based economy and a technology-based economy. In BBA's brief history, there have been 7 leaders tapped to chair the organization's board of directors. I'm privileged to have served with leaders such as Dowd Ritter, James McManus, Johnny Johns, Fred McCallum, Grayson Hall, and Mark Crosswhite. I want to say thank you to Brian and to the outstanding staff of the BBA for both their daily hard work and their collegiality. Today we extend the line of leadership by introducing our 2018 chairman, Lee Smith. Lee is the East Region Executive for BBVA Compass. He's responsible for leading the bank's commercial banking, wealth management, and retail banking activities in Alabama and Florida, and the bank's commercial banking offices throughout the East Region, which includes Chicago, New York, Baltimore, D.C., Charlotte, Atlanta, Miami, Tampa, and Orlando. It's a pretty big portfolio, Lee. He joined the bank nearly 30 years ago as part of its commercial loan officer development program and has held various positions in commercial and corporate banking. He served as the bank's Birmingham City President from 2006 to 2009. Lee has lived in Birmingham most of his life. He's a graduate of Baylor University and is very active in numerous economic development nonprofit organizations across Alabama and beyond. Lee, the BBA is most fortunate to have you serve in this critical role. Please join me here at the podium. Ladies and gentlemen, as he comes forward, I want to thank you for recognizing him as the incoming 2018 chairman of the board of the BBA. And I know that we will have a great 2018 and beyond because of your leadership. You will be in capable hands, our investors, and I will stay very actively involved in Innovate Birmingham and economic development activities and be a partner with Lee and other leaders as we move forward. Congratulations, Lee. And we found the gavel. And here it is, Lee.
All right.
It's all yours.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ray. You've been an outstanding leader for our organization. I've personally enjoyed working under your leadership these past 2 years. So thank you again for all your service. As a token of our sincere appreciation for your service, we would like to present you with this beautiful painting that we commissioned from local artist Meredith Keith. So I think it's going to show right up here. Isn't that nice? This is a photo of the beautiful painting, which includes parts of UAB. It'll be available for viewing in the lobby during the reception and will be delivered to your office later this week. Thank you again for all your work. Now it is my pleasure to introduce the new officers, new executive committee members, and new members of the board of directors of the Birmingham Business Alliance. Please stand if you are here and be recognized as I call your name. Nancy Gerticke will serve as chairwoman-elect during 2018. Thank you, Nancy. Greg Curran of Maynard Cooper and Gale will serve as vice chairman of public policy. Thank you, Greg. Nelson Bean of Synovus First Commercial Bank will serve as vice chairman of finance. Thank you, Nelson. Jim Gorey of Brassfield & Gorey will serve as vice chairman of economic development. Thank you, Jim. Don Logan of the Birmingham Barons will serve as vice chairman of communications. Thank you. Sanjay Singh of Bimal LLC will serve as vice chairman of workforce development. Where's Sanjay? Thank you. As you heard from the mayor, workforce development is a real priority for us. And as you heard from our automotive panel as well, and that's something we're going to focus on in 2018. Dr. Ray Watts of UAB will be immediate past chairman, and again, continue to look forward to working together. Brian Hilson is president and CEO of the BBA, and Bing Edwards remains as our corporate secretary. So thank you. Today, we also welcome 4 new members of the executive committee: Ed Aldeg of Medical Properties Trust, Tim Vines of Blue Cross Blue Shield of Alabama, Nick Willis of PNC Bank, and Birmingham Mayor Randall Woodfin. New additions to the board of directors are Jason Alexander of St. Vincent's Health System, Scott Birdie of Dixon Hughes Goodman, John Coleman of Graham & Company, Chris Cooper of AAA Cooper Boyd Brothers, John Hackett of Camtech, Brian Hamilton of Trillion Communications Corp., Dr. Bruce Irwin of American Family Care, Jimmy Johnston of Autocar, Richard Murray of National Bank of Commerce, Kathy Nugent of UAB, Daniel Parker of Norfolk Southern Corp., Andrea Smith of BBVA Compass, Bill Smith of Shipped, and Tricia Walwork of Milo's Tea. Now please join me again in welcoming these new board and executive committee representatives. Now, we will continue our BBA 2017 Chairman's Meeting with a reception in the lobby, and we hope you all join us. Our thanks to each of your companies that sponsored today's event, and especially Drummond Company, our presenting sponsor. We thank you for being with us today. We're adjourned.